Hello, good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, July 24th, 2024. My name is Ashley Glover, and I'm here with attorney Deanna Eble, and we've got a good one for you today. This presentation is How Do I Get Paid as Mom's Caregiver? So let's get warmed up with a few housekeeping items. This webinar is a half hour. We put together a PowerPoint, which is being shared on screen along with our webcams. To minimize background noise, your microphones have been muted, so please use the Q&A box to submit any questions that you may have. You are welcome to communicate with other attendees using the chat box. This session is being recorded, and we will email you a link to the recording afterwards. Lastly, we value your feedback, so please let us know how we did in the survey that will appear on screen after the webinar. Now, I am pleased to introduce today's presenter, Ms. Deanna Eble. Deanna is a partner at Russo Law Group with over 20 years of experience in
Oh,
elder
you
law,
make me sound old
estate.
then.
I was waiting for that. Elder law, estate planning, special needs planning, and Medicaid planning. She serves as the lead planner at our Islandia office and meets with clients in Garden City, virtually and through home visits. Deanna was recently honored with a Premier Businesswoman of Long Island Award and currently serves on the executive committee of the New York State Bar Association. So, young lady, thank you very much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. I hope that you're all doing well. Today, we're going to cover Medicaid's Caregiver Compensation Program, the eligibility requirements for that program, and give you a real-life example and success story for that program. And I think a lot of what prompted the idea to do this is, we're starting to see more and more commercials on TV that talk about this program, and it's a program that's been in effect for decades, and I think not enough people know about it. And with the culture today and what's going on in the world today, where it's somewhat difficult to get the care that you're looking for, relying on family often is a good resource. So let us help you figure out how to do that. This is a discussion about the Caregiver Compensation Program, which is also known as CDPAP. And let's go to the next slide. Okay, so it's a consumer-directed personal assistance program, CDPAP. It is for chronically ill or physically disabled individuals who have a medical need for help with activities of daily living. It allows for you to have the flexibility and freedom to choose the caregivers that are going to care for you. But with the good also comes responsibility. You're responsible for hiring, training, supervising, and terminating the person that's providing the care. What a lot of clients do is they work with managed long-term care agencies so that the agencies are doing a lot of the human resource aspects of things, where they have contracts with Medicaid, they will get paid by Medicaid and then pass on the payment to the individual. And you don't have to deal with Social Security and all of those aspects of things. But at the same time, if somebody, you hire somebody to provide the care and that person is sick or on vacation and needs coverage, it is your responsibility to step in and get that coverage and provide that coverage. You do need a New York State assessment to be done in order to qualify for this benefit. And you have to be willing to make informed choices. So it's really intended for somebody who can self-direct and make those choices. When we talk in the first box about activities of daily living, just as an example, some of those activities are getting washed, getting dressed, eating, toileting, bathing, and it's levels of things. So it may be that you can feed yourself or your loved one can feed themselves, but it's the preparation of the meal that they can't do. Or they could feed themselves, but it's not only the preparation, but it's, cutting things up into smaller pieces. Or they can't feed themselves at all. So there's different levels to that. Okay. So in order to be eligible for this program is a Medicaid program. It's paid for by Medicaid. which is a government benefit that's available. You have to be eligible for personal care, so that's why that assessment is required. You also have to have a stable medical condition so that the person that's providing the care can help you, but you also are stable enough to help yourself with some things. And you also have to be self-directing or have somebody who is not a caregiver in charge of being able to do that direction. So what does that mean? That means you wouldn't have somebody who's named as the agent under your power of attorney also being the person who's providing the care. You need, it's for checks and balances purposes. So you want to make sure that somebody is in charge of arranging everything if you're not, your loved one is not able to arrange it on their own. But that same person that's making the arrangements can't be the one that's providing the care, because then there's no one making sure that you're getting the right care. All right. So some of those eligibility requirements fall under the guidelines of community-based Medicaid, so Medicaid home care. And in the current world with 2024 numbers, Medicaid home care is it's a government benefit that looks at your assets and income to determine whether or not you're eligible for the care. So they break your assets and income into columns, and there are some assets that are put in the income column if done the right way, and I'll explain. Your assets cannot total more than $31,175. The assets are everything from the checking, savings, money market, CDs, those kinds of things, to brokerage accounts. They also look at the cash value of life insurance policies. I am not mentioning IRAs on purpose. I know someone's probably sitting there saying, oh, and IRAs can go into the income column if the IRAs are getting a distribution to allow for them to be classified as income. Now, I know some of you are sitting there saying, oh, I get my required minimum distribution, so my IRA is part of my income. Understand that the IRS uses their tables to determine your life expectancy to generate the required minimum distribution. For Medicaid purposes, they rely on the Social Security life expectancy tables to determine your maximum. We reference it as a maximum distribution. So you have to take that maximum distribution out of your IRAs in order to take your IRA out of the asset column and put it in the income column. Okay. And I believe that Ashley's going to send you this information so you can go back and listen to that again so that it makes it more sense the more you hear it. There's a Social Security life expectancy table, which is what Medicaid uses to calculate your monthly or your yearly distribution for IRAs when they're considering Medicaid. And then there's also that table that the IRS uses, which you're most commonly used to hearing about. That's not the distribution Medicaid allows. They want more. With the income, you're allowed $1,752 a month. So what is made up of that? It's your Social Security. It's any pensions that you may be getting. It is interest and dividends that you get off of brokerage accounts and stocks. So if you still have them in your name and you're getting interest and dividends, those count against your monthly allowance. But remember, brokerage accounts, stock accounts, those assets can exceed more than the 31,175. So you probably are not generating as much income from those particular assets. The other thing that you're allowed to do in the community world, when we're talking about Medicaid, is you're allowed to pay for the premiums of a supplemental insurance. So that's, for example, AARP, GHI, Blue Cross Blue Shield. If you have your Medicare and, traditional Medicare, and you've opted to buy into one of those supplemental plans, you can have $1,752 a month. And the cost of those premiums in order to calculate out your allowance. And then anything over that is considered an overage and would require one of two things, either a spend down or a trust. And we're going to get into that in a moment. You can also have your house, and as long as the home exemption is $1,070,000 of equity. So if your equity, which is the value of your house that isn't mortgaged, is under that $1,070,000, then you're able to still have your house in your name. Now, I would recommend that you come in and have a consultation, because even though you can have that house in your name, you don't necessarily want to keep it in your name, because you want to be mindful of the fact that even though Medicaid will provide the care, they also have an opportunity where they can put liens on assets, and you don't want it to be that they put a lien on the assets for the services that they provide to you. And then when you pass, or when that house is sold, they look to get reimbursed. So at the end of the day, it's always even though you're getting all of this information, you still want to come in and have a consultation to go over your specific scenario, so that you make sure that you're making an informed decision on how you're holding your assets and whether or not they're exposed in the future after you've already got the benefit, you've already received the benefit. So the next phase of understanding eligibility, because I know that so many of you are looking at those numbers and saying, I'll never qualify because I'm telling you the threshold is $31,175 for assets. And many of us have even just a little bit more than that. And so many of you are familiar with hearing that there's a 5-year look back, there's a 60-month look back. Please understand that that look back is for nursing home Medicaid coverage. We are talking about community-based home care coverage. There are some differences. The asset level is the same in both, but there are differences with regard to income and transfer penalties. So if you had assets in your name today, let's say you had $100,000 and you wanted to transfer $70,000 out of your name so that you're below that $31,175,000 asset threshold, you can make that transfer without it affecting the community-based Medicaid. But if at some point you need to go into a nursing home over the next 5 years, that transfer of $70,000, depending on what you did with it and who you gave it to, could affect your ability to get nursing home coverage down the road. So Medicaid does you have to be mindful of what you're doing, although we do recommend those transfers in most instances if the need for community care is great. And the other thing to be mindful of is currently there is no look back, which is doing audits of all of your assets. There's no look back to get coverage for community-based Medicaid. Even though I say there is no look back, please understand that we often do give 3 months worth of banking. The reason why we give 3 months worth of banking is because if you are eligible in the 3 months prior to applying, Medicaid will retroactively cover you for services that you could submit bills for. And so we always give the 3 months so that Medicaid can see whether or not you're eligible. If you've made transfers the month before you're looking to apply, you're not eligible, but you just want to be mindful of all of that information. Again, it's always better to talk to an expert about something like this than to try and figure it out yourself, because Medicaid, it does have nuances and you want to be mindful of those nuances. So we were having a discussion about the income, and I addressed the fact that income was $1,752 a month plus the cost of any supplemental insurance. You can move to the next slide. Okay. And well, what happens if I'm over that amount? So if you're over that amount, let's say that you're over by $1,000. If you're over by $1,000, you have two options in the community world. When you're looking for community-based Medicaid, you can either take that $1,000 in my example, give that $1,000 to Medicaid. It's called a spend down. Let Medicaid use that money to pay toward the cost of your care. And then once that whole $1,000 is spent down on your care, they'll kick in the next penny. Or you have the option of doing something called a pooled income trust. A pooled income trust is a trust that is established with a not-for-profit. These charities are approved by New York State, so it's very specific. It's not just any not-for-profit. There's about 20 to 22 of them in New York that are approved, and you can look at our website and there's a type in search pooled income trust, and there's a list of trusts that are available. Or you could contact us and we could give you that information. You can take that $1,000 in my example, give it to the charity. They will establish a trust that you're the beneficiary of. And then every month you can submit bills of yours as the applicant to Medicaid, to the pooled trust company. On Long Island in particular, this is a great resource because it's incredibly expensive to live generally, but on Long Island in particular. And so if you, in my example with that $1,000, you had utility bills or a cable bill in your name, you could submit that bill, and then the pooled trust company will use your $1,000 that you gave them to pay those expenses. They're not going to pay more than the $1,000. They're going to pay up to what you put in, and they all have an administrative expense that you incur on a monthly basis, not significant enough to not do it if your income is significantly over. So you definitely want to look into that as a resource to be able to use your money for you and still get the government benefit. I do this with clients on a daily basis. It's a great opportunity to get care at home because it's expensive, but we all want to stay home as long as we possibly can because that's where our comfort is. So this is a great opportunity. Next slide. Okay. And so it is such a great opportunity that I do have clients that are using this consumer-directed plan. In fact, I just recently went and had a meeting with Joe at his house, and he was a lovely gentleman, and we sat outside by the pool. I felt like I was, all in the know, sitting out by the pool. And I was having a discussion with him because his granddaughter and one of her friends have been taking care of him. And they just feel that he needs the care. They're willing to provide the care. And so we are working with Medicaid to get him approved for Medicaid so that she can provide that care for him. I mean, I've also had scenarios where, a sister needs to get on Medicaid because they need activities of daily living addressed on a daily basis. And she has a sibling and a sister-in-law who are both in the industry, and she is much more comfortable with them. And it's more of a rapport and a relationship because they're family, that they're able to care for her in a way that somebody else may not be willing to care for her or able to care for her. So it's such a lovely thing because you get to give back, but also it's not hindering your ability to survive, especially on Long Island with the cost of living, that you're getting paid for the care that you're providing. The only thing that I just need to warn you is that a spouse is not able to get paid to handle the care needs of their spouse. So you're able to hire almost anyone, including family members, except the spouse, to handle the day-to-day care that you need for activities of daily living. And understand that at the end of the day, we talk in terms of applying for Medicaid because you need help with feeding and toileting and all those things that I've listed, bathing. But it doesn't mean that the person is just restricted to that. They can also be there helping you not only with those things, but if you need some light housekeeping, you need help with your laundry to get done, they're going to accompany you to a doctor's appointment. All of those things are things that are grouped in to that scenario once you get approved and the hours are approved. Because at the end of the day, what happens in that NIA assessment is somebody from the outside comes in and evaluates you to determine how many hours you're eligible for. How many hours do they feel that you need in a given day to have somebody care for you? And based on that assessment and the hours that are offered, that's how your family member gets paid. They get paid for the hours that Medicaid says that Medicaid through NAIA say that you're eligible for and that you need. So it's not necessarily a 24-hour concept, but at least it's getting family to come in and provide that care the way that you want it to be. I think I see a couple of questions. If you are above the resource limit, can you spend on prepaid funeral costs, and how much you're allowed for this and any requirements? That's a great question, Dolly. I love that. So, yes, you can prepay your funeral. The funeral has to be an irrevocable pre-plan, which the funeral homes are all well aware of that. They know how to do it. They know what to expect. And if you've prepaid funeral expenses already as a revocable funeral plan, it's a one-pager to make it irrevocable. And because it's irrevocable and there's no opportunity to get cash back from the plan, there's not any limit on what kind of threshold you have for spending. Okay. So I hope that answered your question. What type of, Yolanda wants to know, what type of bills will the pooled income trust cover? Cell phone, clothing, car expenses, travel. They cover all of those expenses. They cover, it has to be bills of the individual who is receiving Medicaid. And so you need to make sure that those bills are in their name. I often encourage families to use budgeted bills. So the bills like your cable bill is often the same amount every single month. A rent bill, rent or HOA fees are often the same amount every month. And the reason why I always recommend that is because a lot of these pooled trust companies, what they will do is they will say, oh, if you have something that's budgeted, you verify it for us, maybe once a year or twice a year. And they will know that it's on a budget, and they will make those payments for you without a lot of other excessive documentation that's required. Some other things you have to every month submit bills to them, and that sometimes can get a little overwhelming. You have to be careful with things like grocery receipts and other receipts, because they do scrutinize those receipts to make sure that they're paying only for the individual who is receiving Medicaid and not for the whole family. So if mom was getting Medicaid and decided to go and take everybody out for dinner, the trust company will only pay for mom's meal, which there's not, they'll pay for one meal essentially and not everybody's meal. Same with groceries. Like, even though there's an aide in the house providing care, regardless of whether they're a family member or not, Medicaid will only pay for food for one person. So the grocery bill, if there's multiple people that are living in the house, you kind of have to split the bill, and it's only for one person. Okay. And then Eileen, can you have a full-time job and also provide care and get paid after you work your full-time job? If your full-time job is teaching, is that okay since you're a state employee? So that one, I'm going to get back to you on that, because my gut is yes, you can do that. My understanding is really one of the only issues that they have is they don't pay overtime, so they won't go over 40 hours. I don't think that it's a problem, but it's going to depend on the assessment that is given. If the assessment is, 7 hours a day, then it's going to be, well, where are those 7 hours? If it's 24/7, then you should be okay. But I can look into that. I'll make myself a note to look into that, and I'll have Ashley get back to you on that. Ashley, if you want to just switch to the next slide since we're on questions. Okay. And then you had a follow-up to that. How old does a grant grandchild have to be paid as a caregiver, or any classes or training required to be a caregiver? Is one company better than another for pay and dealing with things? My gut says you have to be over the age of 18, but again, I will look at that for you. If there's an age requirement. And with regard to classes and stuff like that, a lot of managed long-term care. So if you think in terms of PPOs or HMOs like we use for insurance, Medicaid has this component, which is a managed long-term care. So you get approved for the Medicaid, you do all these assessments, and then you have to get a home care agency. If you're not using CDPAP, you need a home care agency to provide the care. Well, in a CDPAP world, you also get a home care agency to be like the HR hub. Some of them do have classes that they offer up. There's not any one particular one that I would say is better than the next. They're all pretty even keel when it comes to dealing with this type of program. And so I think that you could be comfortable using any of the ones that you're familiar with. Dolly, can you work with a funeral home that does irrevocable payment? Do you need to get a lawyer to do that? No, you can work directly with the funeral home for the funeral expenses. They know exactly what they're doing if you mention Medicaid. And I think there was also, Lisa said, when I wanted to be my mom's caregiver, none of the private paid aides were willing to jump through all the hoops with the agency, such as background check, and doctor's papers and everything. Since Medicaid required 4 backups, I was not able to get paid because none of the caregivers wanted to go through that, which is just a particular experience. Lisa's just addressing the fact that because as the caregiver, or the person in charge of setting everything up, not necessarily the caregiver, not the caregiver actually, that person has to fill out forms that show succession, so that Medicaid is comfortable with the fact that there's succession in there. There are some things that you have to do, and I think that Medicaid has tweaked the plan a bit over the last couple of years, because of the fact that it is we are having issues getting services out, especially to Eastern Long Island. So it may not be as cumbersome as that anymore, Lisa. And what percentage is the administrative fee? It depends on, so you're talking, Yolanda, about the administrative fee for the pooled trust company. It's not significant. A lot of them do things on a tiered scale, which is based on the money that's going in and how much they're managing on a given month. And so at the end of the day, it's not a specific percentage, but you can look at each individual company that you're interested in, and they'll give you a breakdown of what their fees are. All right. So that was great. I love all those questions. That makes me know that you're all listening. Ashley, I think that you have an opportunity to take over now.
All right, I think I'm up. So, what makes Russo Law Group different? Our clients consistently commend us for our dedication, accessibility, comprehensive legal services, and extensive experience, which provides them with peace of mind and confidence. Established in 1985, we are a boutique firm specializing in elder law, special needs planning, estate planning, and estate administration. With 3 convenient office locations across Long Island, our firm boasts a team of 10 attorneys ready to step right in and help. Having served over 17,000 families, we are proud to be recognized as the best law firm in elder law by U.S. News. And in upcoming news and events, Deanna will be a featured speaker at our estate planning seminar next month. So we invite you to join us at the Giorgio's Pizzeria in Wisconsin on August the 15th. For more details and registration, please visit our website at vjrussolaw.com. In addition to estate planning,
Well, can I just say one thing, Ashley? Wisconsin is in Suffolk County for those Nassau County people, but it's a lovely place to visit. So please come and see me in person.
Perfect. Thanks. All right, so here's a list of our services. We will go ahead and wrap this up. We appreciate all of you for joining us. Please leave us your feedback in the survey that will appear on your screen momentarily. And in case you missed any portion of today's webinar, we will email you a link to that recording. Deanna, you did a wonderful job explaining that information and addressing all of the questions. So thank you, as always, for sharing your time and knowledge with us.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
All right, be well and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.